Hi, everyone. Welcome back from the networking sessions. Hopefully you were able to mix and mingle. And if you weren't, we're going to squeeze you into another networking session after this one so that you can mix and mingle. Try again. Also in the chats, I see that there were some questions for a few of the presenters and some comments. So it's good for the presenters to take that up. Maybe you may want to send a message privately to some of the people and connect. Okay, I see Mope has put her information there. That's great. Somebody was asking me about customer relationship management, and I said Mope does that. So here are her contact details here. She's the one who mentioned that. Also, like I said before, I'll say it again, I will share all these slides with you so that you have an idea, or again, another idea of what these people do and how they could help your business. Plus, the contact information is on each slide, so you can also reach out to them directly. Okay, great. ULaw, I see one of the ULaw people here, but I'm not sure if she's ready. It's now time for our next session, which is about the laws and regulations of trading online. And a lot of people have shown interest in e-commerce. And especially even when you registered on the form, many people were interested in the e-commerce section, which was the part that Kemi talked a little bit about. Okay, I see Adiola here. Hi, Adiola. Nice to see you. So she'll go through some of the laws and regulations that you might have concerns about, but most importantly, it's an Ask Us Anything session, which means at some point you'll be able to ask questions. They will open up the floor and be able to sort of go through some of the issues that you might be thinking about, some of the problems you have, or some of the questions you need answers to. Let me hand over to the ULaw team.
Hello. Hello, everyone. So as was mentioned, my name is Adiola. I am the manager of ULaw. We're a legal services provider that caters specifically to the SME community and an arm of the firm Udo Odoma and Bello Osage of Nigeria. So first up, we have an introduction from a member of our team who has a very unique perspective, as he is also he also operates within the e-commerce space, and his name is Tega Agbosa. So he should hopefully be unmuted shortly.
Tega, okay, 1 second. I'm not seeing a Tega on the list.
Oh, apologies. I think I may have signed in anonymously.
Okay, welcome. Anyway, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so hi everyone. My name is Tega, as my colleague Adiola mentioned. So I have the twin role today of not just introducing my colleagues who will be talking about the different areas of interest that we think will be critical to any e-commerce business. But I also happen to have founded and operate an e-commerce platform as well. So it would not just be providing you with information that is sort of theoretical, but one that is actually from someone who's hands-on in it. So without taking more time, I'll just go straight to the point and say that we would be talking about some areas of the e-commerce business that people know about, may have heard about, but don't really think that it's something that they should pay too much attention to. And the beginning would be setting up a business, right? A lot of people that I know who run e-commerce platforms these days, particularly because all you need to do is set up an Instagram or a Facebook account, and you're firing on all cylinders. You have people who will push the business and push your products for you, and you think that's it. But really, you need to be registered. You need to have a business entity set up with the CAC. My colleague Busayo will be talking about how you go about doing that and what are the options you have. And so what suits your business, what suits your needs. Then again, documentation. Now, what people don't realize again is that there's a lot that goes into what you put down, and you just need to have your paperwork in place. So one second. So it's really important that you have your documentation. So you know everything from what your return policy would be and what your refund policy is, what your data protection policy or your privacy policy is. All of these are information that the law requires you to have and to share with your customers. So there are implications of for not having any of those. So we'll be looking at that. Then I just mentioned data protection, right? And it may seem like, okay, is it because we're talking about e-commerce and so that's why there's the reference to data protection, but that's a really, really critical aspect of our lives today. When you think about the biggest companies in the world today, you would definitely count in the top 5 the big data companies. And so data now is the new oil. And what is that data? It is the information of your customers, right? Your customers, everything from their names, their IP addresses. I was in one of the breakout sessions a short while ago, and I was listening to one of the speakers talk about analytics and being able to track where your customer is, what they're looking at on your website or on your platform. And all this information, that's data. And so how you go about mining that information, how you go about collecting and saving that information is critical. There's laws around it. We'll be looking at those as well. E-payments. We can't talk about e-commerce without talking about e-payments and how the different payment solutions, either how we use them or how we provide them. So depending on the side of the spectrum that you fall in, that is something that we'll be looking at as well. And then you can't talk about business in Nigeria, especially without talking about taxes and what are the taxes that are applicable to the e-commerce business. So that is the sort of each of the issues that we will be talking about, and my colleagues will be fielding questions from you on any of those areas. I'm just going to be talking generally based on my experience with e-commerce in Nigeria. And one of the things that I observed is that a lot of people, let me not say most people, who are online business owners do not actually see it as a business. They see it as an outlet, as a way of selling, as opposed to seeing it as a business. And so a lot of times, people do not actually set up the structure, even if it's a one-man show or a 5-man team. It has to be seen as a business and has to be set up as a business. And so you have to put in the right processes. You need to be able to say, this is a market that I want to cater to. This is what I'm offering. This is the hole that I see that I can fit. And so I provide that level of support or service within that space. And your online presence, and this may just be my experience, but I found out that particularly in Nigeria, the 3 most challenging issues that e-commerce companies face or that I've faced is 1, integrity and trust. Customers generally would not trust anybody that is trying to buy something from online. And so every transaction, every encounter is one where you sell yourself. It is important to build that trust and create the integrity that will sustain the business from one level to the other. The second is logistics. It is, a company or an entrepreneur with the best of intentions and the best internal structure is likely to might still require logistic support from a third party. And therein lies the chink in the armor, where with the best of intentions, you may still fall short of meeting the demands of your customers. So you have to put that into consideration in ensuring that you manage your customers' expectations. Otherwise, you will come back with negative feedback, which can impact on your ability to grow the business. And then lastly, accountability. A lot of times, online startups, e-commerce companies are, for want of a better expression, a one-man show. And so if you feel that I put in this money, I put in this investment, and so when income or revenue comes in, you can use it for other things, expecting that, okay, to come back, and then it's all part of running the business. It's my business. I'll bring in the money back. Once you do that, chances are you may never be able to get the kind of potential that your business will can achieve. For me, one of the things that I've done, or the two things actually that I've done that I think I'm really grateful for, and I would recommend to anybody that is in this space, is one, get investors. No matter how small the investment amount is, and not just investors who you do not care about, if I can use that word, but people who you perhaps respect, people who you know that will not, for whether it's emotional or whatever reason, look the other way. Now, what those investors will do for you is, without even going through your books, it just puts you in check. It gives you the drive to continue. There are times when, without even trying to be, have any untoward attitude or any practice that is not professional, you may find yourself struggling in the business. And if it's all your money, you may get to the point where you're feeling like maybe it's about time you just gave up. But knowing that you have other people's funds with you, no matter how small it is, will serve as a driver. It will keep you going. The other is to actually consider the business as one where you will potentially get institutional investors into. Now, once you have that at the back of your mind, you start keeping your books in order. You start putting in structures that will make your business marketable to an investor, bankable to a lender if you need funds from a lender. But generally, it would just set you in a position where you find out that your business becomes more viable than just that idea that you thought you had. So that I'll leave with these notes, and then we'll take the questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Tega. I see a couple questions already, and let me encourage everyone. These people are professionals in the legal field. They're here to answer your questions about trading online, e-commerce, things like that. I see 2 questions already, and I'll read them out one by one. But for everybody else, please put your questions in there. This is your time with them. Ordinarily, maybe they have retainers that's millions of naira per hour or per day or per month. You have the opportunity to talk to them, to ask them questions now. So please use that opportunity, use this opportunity now. The first question to the team from ULaw, from Ubok Ame, if I may ask, is there or are there specific statutes in Nigeria that address e-commerce, data collection, and online transactions, apart from CAMA, CAMA? Also, is it available to the non-lawyers for easy references?
Okay, so I would just take this one, and then I'll leave Adiola to moderate the other questions. So there is no specific, at the moment, there is no specific law that applies to e-commerce only. So depending on the sector of commerce that you're operating in, you may be regulated by the regulator in that sector. However, every person, now person could be an individual or a corporate entity. But for purposes of this workshop, I would say that every business that collects the information, the personal information of any Nigerian citizen or resident comes within the ambit of the Nigerian Data Protection Regulations, which was passed in 2019. Now, in that regulation, you are supposed to collect, process, and store the information of Nigerian citizens and residents, basically your customers, who are your customers, in the most secure way possible, and to not do certain things, but also each of those customers have rights that this law provides. So for example, they have a right to ensure that you seek their consent before you collect and process their information. They also have a right to ask you to either modify or delete their information. They can ask you to transfer that information. So basically, there are these the data protection laws apply to e-commerce businesses to the extent that you collect information of your Nigerian customers. And so when you say, is it available to non-lawyers for easy references? I'm assuming that you're talking about the law itself. And if my understanding is correct, then yes. If you go to the NIDA website, NIDA is the National Information Technology Development Agency. If you go to their website, it's nida.gov.ng. You'll be able to download that regulation from there. Otherwise, I'm sure that we will be leaving our contact details at the end of this workshop. Send us an email and we'll be happy to provide you with that law and any other follow-up questions that you may have.
Thank you, Tega. So should I allow Adiola now to go through and moderate the remaining questions?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Adiola, on to you.
Hello, can I be heard? Sorry, I think I was muted. Okay, so thank you, Tega, for the introduction. So I just wanted to go over the topics that we have just before going into the questions one more time. So the members of my team are all on and their videos are on. Unfortunately, they seem to all be signing as me, Adiola Jai. So I'm just going to introduce them one by one. So we have my colleague, Busayo Odeku, who will be handling questions on business establishment. We also have my colleague, Tobechi Nwokocha, who will be talking about return policies. Noble Chiwendu is also here, and he'll be talking about taxation. Bond Ekiopara will be answering questions on e-payments, and Anu Oluwapo Dunaike will be talking about documentation. So I'll be fielding questions basically along those lines. So the next question I'm going to take is, do we need to have our brands trademarked internationally before going into Amazon and into other online spaces? So I think I'm actually going to refer this one back to Tega once more so that he could answer the question.
Okay, so yes, you do not need to trademark. The simple answer is you do not need to trademark your brand before you go on Amazon as a or any other foreign trading platform as a law. However, you would agree that your brand is personal, and so depending on how you utilize your brand, you can actually use just the brand name to generate revenue on the one hand. And so you want to protect that. On the other hand, you run the risk of exposing your brand name and trademark to people in other jurisdictions who end up taking that, registering it, and being able to use it. Now, trademarks, I should just mention that trademarks is territorial. So you cannot register your trademark in Nigeria and expect that that registration will cover it in the UK or in America. You would have to register it in every jurisdiction where you want to operate. So it's a time-consuming venture if you decide to register it in areas that you do not want to operate. But as long as you identify where you want to operate, you should um, trademark your brand.
Okay, thank you so much, Tega. The same person also asked if they could get affordable advice to resolve this. And the answer is yes, and we can help you with that. So at the end of the session, we'll put our contact details into the chat so that everybody can send us an email and we can figure out, how to get you the advice and the support that you need. So the next question is, when you are doing due diligence on a company for an institutional investor, what are some of the key factors that you look out for? I think this is an investment question, but I think I'm going to send it to my colleague, Bond Ekiobara.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay. So essentially, when you are doing some sort of due diligence on a company as an institutional investor, things that you would ordinarily look at is whether or not they have been compliant with statutes and laws, and as a ripple effect, whether or not they are liable to any penalties or fines that would impact on the revenue of the company. So essentially, um, when you invest your money, you expect that you would get some sort of returns. And so when those returns in question cannot come to you simply because the company is liable to certain fines and penalties, then you would want to take that as a red flag. Another thing that you would also look out for would be anything in relation to whether all they have said that they do is actually correct. So most of the time, they want to find out. You see an institutional investor ask a company, "What is your business plan? What are the things that you expect to do? What sort of licenses do you have to carry out these activities?" And so when they do not have um, when what they say they do not have, then it sort of defeats the purpose as to why you are investing in that company. And then the list is all it's endless, because the reasons behind investments differs from investor to investor. So it's most of the time it's in terms of compliance, in terms of whether there are any sort of penalties, fines, or anything that can really put the company in jeopardy and make the investor unable to um, recoup their returns on investments.
Yeah, just to add to what Bond has just said, um, like you rightly said, the investor uh, then determines, when you know who your investor is, you understand what is expected of you, where their focus lies. So an investor that is, say, a private equity fund, you know that their investment timelines are short. So you know that they will be looking at returns. They will be looking at corporate governance. You need to make sure that, okay, how viable is the business? You have your financial projections, and how sustainable are those projections? Can you back them up by the realities of the day? So it's not just to get nice numbers, bandy nice numbers, but when you place that side by side with the reality in the economy, with the reality of the purchase power of your target market and all of that, you discover that that's what sort of drivers, in addition to everything that Bond has said, that would be critical to ensuring whether they consider you viable or not.
Okay, thank you so much, Tega, for that. So the next question is on taxation. So I'll send it to Noble Chiwandu and Tega, because it's also on trade. It says, are there special tax protections for SMEs that are exporting made in Nigeria products?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Okay. The Companies Income Tax Act basically makes provisions for tax exemptions for companies who engage in export trade, and also there are also exemptions for companies who engage in some businesses called grouped into the category of pioneer. So these are called companies in pioneer status. So to answer your question, yeah, there are tax exemptions for companies who are involved in export trade. Yeah.
Thank you, Noble. So the next question is actually a follow-on from the initial conversation that we were having regarding trademarks. As a follow-up, it says, if you do not trademark your brand, is it that someone else can start marketing your own product, or is it the name that is at stake? So Tega, could you take this one?
Yeah, no, so they can't market your product. Your products you have proprietary interest over those products, but the brand name, that's what's critical. So I would give an example. Everyone knew of Etisalat, right? When Etisalat came into Nigeria, even prior to coming into Nigeria, it had the name being used in the UAE and in Abu Dhabi and the Middle East. But on arriving in Nigeria and trying to register, someone had registered the name Etisalat. And so they couldn't use the name Etisalat for purposes of registering the company at the CAC. But because they had the trademark Etisalat, they were able to register that mark, and they used that mark. So the person who registered the Etisalat name at the CAC would not have been able to use the Etisalat trademark, because the UAE, the Emirati entity, had registered that trademark. So I don't know if that explains that. So on the one hand, if you register your trademark, you can use that mark, and someone use that mark within the class. I should just add this. It is within a class. So when you register trademark, you register it in a class. So if it's a product that is in the food and beverages class, that's nobody can use that trademark, that name, within that class. So somebody might be able to use that in, say, machinery and engineering or motor vehicles. So you have to register it in all the classes that you are interested in registering or in operating. Adiola?
I'm so sorry. It seems every time I mute myself, I'm unable to unmute myself again. Thank you so much, Teka. Okay, so this question goes back to the taxation conversation and what Noble had initially said. So Noble, it's back to you, and it says, how does a company get the export tax exemptions or pioneer status?
Hi, hello. So basically, you qualify for such tax exemption if probably I didn't say this earlier. If you take back the proceeds of the exports and you use the proceeds to purchase raw materials in Nigeria or purchase other agricultural plant equipment, that's when you actually qualify for that tax exemption. So it's not just enough that you actually export goods. So you must have used the profit or the proceeds of that export to actually purchase raw materials and plant machinery and other things in Nigeria. So that's when you are seen to qualify for such tax exemption.
Thank you. Thank you, Noble. Okay, so we have a question here that has come up a couple times. Unfortunately, it's not a legal question, but I will read it out so that everyone can kind of have a think about it. It says, how can one add other payment channels so as to accommodate other countries who do not have Paystack on my website store? So I think she's asking about adding other e-payment channels to her website. So it's not a legal question, but I think Tega, because you have an e-commerce store, you might be able to speak on this matter.
So it would depend on the structure of the build of your website, because ordinarily you should be able to either apply any API that the payment solutions provider has, as long as you agree the terms. It's just an option. So yes, you can. Your web developer in working together with the payment solutions provider should be able to do that easily.
Thank you, Tega. Okay, so I have a question that's coming from a different chat.
Adela, I think Bond wants to add something to that, but Bond, you're muted.
Okay.
Bond, you're muted.
Okay. So just to add to what Tiga said, from a legal perspective, ordinarily what would happen is you could enter into a partnership with a payment service provider, and from the question, it's I get the sense that the sort of payment service providers that you would need will be foreign payment service providers, and so essentially when you enter into a partnership with, say, a Paystack, for example, you would need an international money transfer or remittance service operator. Now, what ordinarily that will do is give foreigners who do not have Paystack in their countries to be able to make such kind of payments. But ordinarily, it would be something that you would start the partnership with, say, a Paystack, and then they will link up the conversation with an IMT, with an international money transfer services operator.
Thank you, Bond. Okay, so I have another question that's come via a different channel. And it says, I'm an entrepreneur that is setting up an e-commerce store. What are the key documents I should have in place to ensure that my business is legally protected from risk? So I think that's a question for Anu.
Okay, can everybody hear me? All right, thank you. Thank you, Adiola, for that question. So when you are running an e-commerce platform or an e-commerce business, there are certain key documents that you should have in place in order to protect your interests and to govern the relationships that you're going to have with your customers or other clients, such as investors and such. So one of the key documents you're supposed to have in place is the terms of use. So this should be on your website. When people log in to your website, there should be a link for them to read your terms of use, which is basically terms and conditions of the service you're providing. It should contain your payment information, do's and don'ts, disclaimers, things that you will not be liable for, guarantees and such. So just basically to let your customer know this is what you can do on my this is what you can use my website to do. This is what should govern our relationship as a client and also as a seller and client. Also, you should have your privacy policy as one of the key documents that should be on your website, which should talk about how you will collect and use personal information of your customers or your clients, how you would store that information, keep it secure, how you, if you're going to also disclose that information to third parties, and then how you're going to make sure that you don't, that the personal information your customer has put in on your website is not at any risk and is secure and will not be sold to anybody or be used for things other than what your customer wants to do on your website. You should also have a returns and refunds policy to say this is what happens if you're not satisfied with the products I've sent to you or services that I have rendered. So you should have a return and refund policy as well. Then you're also going to have different contracts that you need to enter to on a case-by-case basis, depending on what transaction under agreements. You're supposed to have agreements with people you're buying stuff from, your vendors that supply you either your raw materials or your goods and everything. So you need to have that in place. You should also have non-disclosure agreements that would help you to protect your confidential information. So if you're dealing with a vendor or another party, you should have a non-disclosure agreement that says whatever information that I have provided during our relationship or during this transaction should be kept private and confidential and should not, so you don't get that information out to third parties, especially in relation to like your intellectual property and all your ideas and things that you put in place. You should also have joint venture agreements if you want to work with similar businesses or services, so you guys can have a joint venture agreement that would govern your relationship in that aspect. Also, memorandum of understanding, so that's like a preliminary to a contract, just to state that these are the different terms and conditions that you would want to be bound by. Also, independent contractor agreements with different contractors that you work with on a case-by-case basis. It is very important to have your terms and conditions clearly stated out so that there are no misconceptions as to what the intentions are between both parties. Those are like the major documents that you should have in place.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anu. Okay, so we have another question on trademarking, which is quite interesting. It's quite a specific situation, but it says, if someone only has online presence in another country, so I think basically we have an entrepreneur who is selling her goods in another country via her e-commerce website, via her e-commerce site, and she says, should I still register the trademark in my country, even if the business doesn't have a physical presence here? I think that's what the question is asking. So should she register her trademark in Nigeria if she's not selling her goods in Nigeria, she's selling her goods elsewhere?
Again, the risk of not registering your trademark is particular to the owner of that mark. So if you have done your analysis and you believe that you do not see any risk to maybe somebody replicating that mark in your home jurisdiction and using it, then you do not have to register it. But it's the same way if you feel that you don't have to register in Ghana, for example, because you're not going to do anything in Ghana, you don't have to register it. If you feel that you will not need to register, use it in Nigeria. And if someone registers it and uses it here, it will not impact on your business, then you can. Remember, trademark is a personal right. It's protecting your creativity and your mark, the mark that you have used for your product. So if it's not if it's not registered, it is open to be used by somebody else. And as long as you're happy for somebody else to use your mark in your jurisdiction, there's no law stopping you. Where the challenge comes then becomes, there is then someone registers it here and then also registers it in the foreign jurisdiction where you are trading and probably did not register it there. You then have a problem because then you that originally had the mark no longer have the rights to the mark in your home country or in the foreign country where you're trading.
Thank you, Tega. Okay, so we only have about 6 minutes left of the session, so I think only time for about 2 more questions. We have a question that says,
sorry, Adela. I just wanted to add, because trademark registration keeps coming up, and I just wanted to add that there's actually OAPI and ARIPO registrations. And what this basically does is that it gives you the opportunity to register your trademark, because OAPI is actually the organization of African intellectual property organizations. And when you register with OAPI, they have a number of African states that are members of OAPI. And with that, you can actually, with an OAPI registration, you basically have protection in a number of, I think, French-speaking African countries. So you can actually explore that option as well. I think ARIPO, which is the African Regional Intellectual Property Organization, covers English-speaking African countries. So when you have these registrations, it basically gives you protection in quite a number of African countries. So you can also take advantage of that for companies that want trademark registration across various regions. Just wanted to add that point. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Misael. Please, we have a lot of requests for you to kind of give details on that in the chat. So if you could please help us just put that in the chat and the information on ARIPO and OAPI. Okay, so we have a question that says, what should you take into consideration when you private label your products under someone's brand? I don't know, Tega, I think that might be for you.
Yeah, okay. So if I understand what you mean by private label, so that would be you writing on the back of a product that has already been manufactured by someone else, and then you create your own label over it. Now, if that's the case, a couple of things come to mind. The first is, do you have the, was that done with the consent or an arrangement between yourself and the original brand owner? If you have that, then that is fine. So in a matter of speaking, you've been licensed to use that product and you're not passing off. Because if it's that you're not the owner, you don't even know the brand, or you don't have the permission or approval to put your label over that person's brand or associate with it, you will be breaching the person's IP rights, in addition to whatever criminal liability might exist. But passing off will certainly be one of the claims that could be brought against you. So that's on the one hand. Secondly, by doing that, you should also know that you take on the liability of the brand owner. So for example, if you bring in a product and you label it with your name, whereas it wasn't done by you, the provisions of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act will apply to you. If there's any issue with that product, you will be liable. If there's any loss, any claim, right, you will be held liable. So you need to bear that in mind. Thank you,
Tega. So we have time for one last question. And I think it's for Tobechi. It's in relation to return policies. And the question is, can a business owner refuse the return of a defective product? So can you simply say no to the customer?
Hi, good afternoon. Can everyone hear me? Yes. So in relation to return policies, I will just mention that there's an implied warranty that a customer can return goods within 3 months. So I'll just mention that. And in relation to whether a business owner can refuse the return of a defective good would depend on whether indeed the good is actually defective. Whether a good is defective is a question of fact. And under the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act, the burden of proving whether a good is actually defective or not is placed on the business owner. So essentially, the business owner will have to prove that the good is actually not defective, and before they can actually refuse a return by a customer. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Tobechi. So our time is almost up. So I don't think we have time to take any other questions. But as I mentioned before, we will be able to answer any further questions and discuss the legal needs of any of the ladies of SheTrades. If you just send an email to the email address that I will shortly be putting in the chat, ULaw is available to help with everything from your business incorporation, various registrations. We also do template documentation, like you need a template agreement that you're going to use across your organization, employment agreements, taxation, a whole range of sectors. We provide these. We also provide annual support, so retainer support for the year, and that's in various different packages depending on what your startup is trying to do. We have packages for those people. We seem to have a lot of questions on intellectual property, so we do have an intellectual property package. We do have a package for startups that are looking for early stage investment. We have company secretarial packages where we can basically be your company secretary for the whole year and ensure that you're completely covered on that front. So there are a lot of things that we can do for the ladies of SheTrades. So please just send us an email and we'd be happy to help. Thank you so much for having us.
So I've just been told that the survey will actually be coming up after the webinar. It will be inside a follow-up email to our workshop. So I think this is it. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for attending. And we hope to hear from you soon. If you'd like to hear from us, obviously, please go ahead, follow us on Instagram or Twitter. Let us know what you thought. And we'll obviously be right there to reach out to you as well. And look out for follow-up emails to this workshop with important materials from this workshop and information on how to get in touch with us. Thank you so much for joining.